Merry Christmas. It's good to be with you this weekend. I hope you've been having a special and fun holiday season. The last month for my family has been really special. In November, we got to welcome our second child, a baby boy. This is our son Banks and our 2-year-old Hensley. And thank you. It's been really special. And we are loving life as a family of 4, and it's cool seeing our daughter become a big sister and baby mom. Everyone's doing great. My wife is a superhero, I'm convinced, and it's just been sweet. We're so grateful for a church and a community who's been so supportive and has helped out and given us some time off, and it's been sweet. So it is good, though, to be back. This weekend at River Glen is also a weekend to celebrate. It is our baptism weekend. This is one of my favorite weekends of the year. Signed up so far for the weekend. We have over 30 people, I think 33 people signed up to get baptized this weekend. We can clap for that. That's exciting. You're going to want to clap for this next one too. Ready? After this weekend, we will pass 200 people saying yes to Jesus and being baptized this year in 2024, which is incredible, remarkable. God has been doing some amazing things, and it's just cool to watch and witness and be a part of it all. And maybe you're here this weekend for baptism weekend. Maybe you're here and you did not plan on getting baptized. I want to tell you, it is not too late. You did not have to sign up in advance. The water is ready for you. We have everything that you need, a change of clothes, pictures, videos, things you could share with family and friends. It is not too late. Maybe you came in and you've been praying about it. You've been thinking about it, and you're like, okay, maybe I will do this thing. Maybe this is not on your radar at all. Man, I'd love to invite you to just open your heart, to open yourself up to what God may be calling you, prompting you to do. What better time of the year than Christmas than to come forward in your faith saying yes to Jesus. So be praying about that. We're going to celebrate with all of those people a little bit later in service. This week, we are continuing in a 2-week series we've called Come and See. Ben kicked us off last week talking about the importance of being bridge builders, what it means for you and me to be a part of people coming to know and find and follow Jesus, in the power of a simple invitation. I think so often we underestimate a simple invitation. A couple months ago, I was at Culver's, and I was getting a ton of pints of custard for our high school group on a Sunday night. And I'm picking up all this custard, I'm like grabbing more out of the fridge, I'm stacking it on the counter, and the young man who was ringing me up, he asked, he's like, dude, what is all this custard for? And I was like, I'm so hungry. No, like I was like, hey, it's this thing called Unite. And there was a moment, though, where I was hesitant. Like I was like, do I tell him, right? Because then I tell him what it's for, then I have to tell him what I do, then I have to tell him it's a church, then I have to like just hope that he's not going to be weird about it or whatever. Like I got to be ready to answer some questions. And I don't know about you, sometimes I get awkward in those moments. Anybody else? Like I'm like, do I say it's a church thing? Do I go for it? And especially working in the church, it gets a little weird. And so sometimes what goes through my head, I don't do this, I don't lie, but what goes through my head is I like to think of ways to say what I do without really saying what I do. And the top 4 that I've come up with for me is hey, I work for a nonprofit. And just kind of let it roll. Be like, oh wow, that's awesome. You know what I mean? One of my favorites is, I'm a professional dodgeball player against high school students, and they just are like, that's how? What is that? One of my favorites, I saw this on a guy's shirt here in the lobby. It said professional hope dealer, and I love that. I think that's great. I'm a professional hope dealer. My personal favorite, though, is just staring at people and saying, yeah, I'm in the business of saving lives. And I let them figure out what that means, and I hope they don't ask any questions, and I just try to move on. In this moment, I was honest. I told him, I'm a youth pastor at the church, and we have a ton of custard for students. We're going to have a party tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. And he had a ton of questions. He was intrigued. He was asking me about the church. He was asking me about my job, and we talked, and I paid for the custard, and I went back to my car. I was sitting in my car, and I get this pit in my stomach, this urge in my heart, whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, fine. I turn the key off. I walk back into Culver's, which might be more awkward, but I walk back in and I find the young man. His name's Liam. And I invite Liam to our high school group on a Sunday night. I say, Liam, we'll greet you. Sunday night we do this thing, it's super chill. We love you. He pulls out his phone right there. He's like, do you have an Instagram? I give him the Instagram. He follows the Instagram. I wait a couple weeks, and I'm like excited, waiting every week. I'm like, he didn't come in. And then finally, with the help of a former student who works at Culver's with him, early November, he walked through the doors. He showed up. He taps me on the shoulder in the middle of service, and I turn. I'm like, hey, oh, you're here. You showed up. What in the world? What just happened? You're here. You came. And Liam has been almost every week since the beginning of November. And last week I asked him, I said, hey, what's your favorite memory from the semester? And he said it would be our Friendsgiving potluck dinner that we do. Man, it was so special to feel like I belonged and be a part of this community. And I tell you that because I get it. It's awkward sometimes. It's weird sometimes. I have been on the wrong end or the awkward end of those moments. But I've been fortunate enough to be on the positive, on the powerful end of those moments. That is the power of a simple invite. A simple invite from us to someone else, maybe someone at Culver's. This week, as we continue and come and see, I want to talk to you about what's at stake. What's at stake when it comes to inviting or not inviting the people in our lives, the people that we cross paths with every single day. And I want to begin by asking this question. Have you ever missed out on something because you underestimated its power? Have you ever missed out on something because you underestimated its power or its effect or its impact that it may have? In 2016, a lot of people were not sure about this electric car company. But now Tesla values at $1.2 trillion. Or maybe in 1994, you went to the movies with some friends and you saw the movie Forrest Gump, or maybe you saw the movie Pulp Fiction. But what you didn't see in theaters was Shawshank Redemption, movie starring Morgan Freeman. This movie had a $25 million budget, but because of the stiff competition in theaters that week and that season, it only brought in $16 million in its covering its budget. However, when it got nominated for an Academy Award, they decided to re-release the movie in theaters. It skyrocketed, grossing over $70 million. That year, it became the #1 movie in VHS sales. And it was, and on most lists, if you look, Shawshank Redemption is listed as the greatest movie of all time. And a lot of people didn't even go see it opening weekend. Or maybe in 2013, you were skeptical of the Milwaukee Bucks first-round draft pick. They picked this skinny kid from Greece whose highlights looked like it came off a VHS tape. And you're like, who is this kid? Is he going to be a legit star? And now we have Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's a two-time MVP, he's an NBA champion, and he is 5th most in NBA jersey sales right now. Have you ever missed out on something because you underestimated its power? See, for many of us, when it comes to inviting, we ask what's at stake, but we don't ask what's at stake for others. We don't ask what's at stake for them. We ask what's at stake for me, right? My reputation's at stake. If I invite this person, if I talk about Jesus with this person, my reputation's at stake. What are they going to think of me? My time is at stake. Do I have to then walk alongside this person and do every group with them and disciple them for the next however many years? Am I really going to commit to that? What's at stake? My confidence is at stake. What if I talk to this person and they have big questions? What if they have a scary story that I don't know how to deal with? I don't know how to answer some of those things. I'm not prepared for that. See, we're willing to ask the question, what's at stake, when it's about us. But what's at stake for them? What's at stake for others? See, the truth is that something is at stake. Something is at stake, not just for you and for me. And so for the rest of our time together, I want to look at a woman who changed the world. A woman who changed the world simply because a few guys decided to invite. And they weren't afraid to ask the question, what's at stake? We're going to begin in Joshua chapter 2. Here's a little context for us. The Israelites have been freed from Egypt, set free from Pharaoh. Maybe you're familiar with the story. And they're being led into the promised land that God has given his people. And the reins have been handed over to Joshua. Joshua is leading his people into the promised land. And as they go in, there are tons of cities that they need to conquer. So Joshua kind of gathers his people, and we pick up here in Joshua 2, verse 1. It says this: Then Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from, I'm going to plead the fifth on that. I don't think I can say that in church. Go look over the land, he said, especially Jericho. So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab, and they stayed there. So Joshua sends his people in, and they find refuge, they find help from a woman named Rahab, a prostitute of all people. Imagine being the spies having to go back and explain this story and why this happened, how they found themselves in this predicament, in this moment. But they were willing. See, a few verses before this, Joshua's men tell him, "We will go wherever." We're willing to go wherever. You see, the truth is that obedience to Jesus, obedience to share the good news of Jesus, often means discomfort. It often means going to the door, going to the house, or sitting at the table of people that we normally wouldn't. You see, for us to come and see people who say, "Come and see," we actually have to be willing to go and tell. We have to be willing to go wherever. And Rahab allows them to stay in her home. Word travels in Jericho, and the king finds out that there's spies in town. And he kind of hears the rumors that maybe they're at Rahab's house. So we pick back up in verse 3. This is what it says. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab: "Bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land." But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She said, "Yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. At dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, they left. I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly. You may catch up with them." But she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax she had laid out on the roof. This prostitute woman who doesn't know these men, she doesn't know these spies, she protects them. She looks out for them. She shows love and kindness to them. She risks her life for them. Isn't it funny that oftentimes it's the people we expect the least from who do the most for us? It's the people that we have these preconceived notions about, who we might actually discover that they are loving and kind and good. And man, were we so wrong about them. It's the classic old man from Home Alone, right? Kevin McAllister realized this is not a scary neighbor, but this is a good, protecting man who's there to help him out. It's those people that we often overlook or misunderstand. Protect me and my family. I know you're going to come back. And when you do, can you please protect me and my family? And the Israelites, they give her their word that they will protect her. And so after some time, a few chapters later, the Israelites return. Maybe you're familiar with this story, the Battle of Jericho. Right? God's people, they march around, the walls fall. It's this crazy story. VeggieTales tells it the best. It's this awesome story. And here we see Rahab again in Joshua chapter 6. Let's pick up verse 22. Joshua said to the 2 men who had spied out the land, "Go in to the prostitute's house and bring her out and all who belong to her in accordance with your oath to her." So the young men who had done the spying went in and brought out Rahab, her father and mother, her brothers and sister, and all who belonged to her. They brought out her entire family and put them in a place outside the camp of Israel. Then they burned the whole city and everything in it. But they put the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron into the treasury of the Lord's house. But Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute with her family and all who belonged to her because she hid the men Joshua had sent as spies to Jericho. They gave her their word, and they keep their word. Which, like when we're looking at God's people, we shouldn't be that surprised that they do that, right, in these stories. However, if we're being honest, they could have gotten there and been like, okay, at the end of the day, she is a part of the enemy, right? Like, we do have to conquer this city. They could have said, okay, yeah, you gave her your word, but like, look at her lifestyle. Do we really owe her that? Do we really have to commit to what we said? Do we really have to look out for her? And I wonder if some of them didn't feel like they should. I wonder if some of them wondered, no. Okay, she hid the spies, whatever. But friends, this is what the church should look like. The church should be a people who show love and kindness to people that others would least expect it. The church should look like people who keep our word when we're going to say, we're going to be people of love. We're going to be people who help others. I heard another pastor say, don't project someone's future based off their past. Don't project someone's future based off their past. And the Israelites, they save Rahab and her family, but they take it one step further. See, the rest of verse 25, it says this, right? They take all the city, they burn the city, they spared Rahab with her family, and she lives among the Israelites to this day. And she lives among the Israelites to this day. They didn't stop at protecting her or saving her or keeping their word. They invited her into community. They took it a step further. They invited her into belonging. A movie in my house that has been on repeat over the last month, maybe longer, is The Grinch. Specifically, the one from like 2018, 2019. It's a newer animated Grinch. It's fantastic. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, nothing, in my opinion, tops Jim Carrey Grinch, but this one is very, very good. Great soundtrack. It's good vibes all around. It's been on, I'm not kidding, every single day in my home for over a month. Every day, my toddler wants to watch The Grinch, so we watch The Grinch. She's been going around quoting Cindy Lou Who. In that movie, Cindy Lou has a line where she says, I'm going to trap Santa Claus. And my 2-year-old has been going around saying that. And we've tried to like say, hey, let's not cool it. Like, let's not say that like out in public. Let's not be telling people that. Like, she's like, I'm going to she's running around. We're like, no, you can't. Stop. Please don't say that, you know. But you know the story, right? The Grinch steals Christmas, yada, yada. He goes up to the hill. They invite him back down. They're singing Yahoo Dory, all the whole thing, right? You know how it goes. They invite him at the end to the big Christmas dinner, right? And they're eating, I'm not going to attempt to say all the things that they're eating, but he shows up to this Christmas dinner, and it zooms in on him, and all of a sudden you can just see in his face, he feels welcomed. He feels this sense of belonging, and he ends with this beautiful line. I'm going to preach Grinch to you. You ready? He ends with this line. He says, but now I see. It wasn't Christmas I hated. It was being alone. But I'm not alone anymore. So I want to ask you, have you ever felt alone? Have you ever felt like you didn't belong? Have you ever felt like you were missing community? I remember in 6th grade, I was a new kid at my school, and I was playing it cool, but inside I was terrified. And about 2 weeks before school started, my parents got a phone call from another kid in my class named Colin. Colin was inviting me to go bowling with a handful of other kids from our class. And again, played it cool, but inside I was ecstatic. I was stoked to be invited. I go bowling, I hang out with these kids who are going to be my new classmates. And after that, I ended up becoming close friends with them. And I met 3 guys that day, Colin included, who would be my friends for most of middle school, for all of middle school and most of high school, people I'm still in touch with to this day. And it's all because someone invited me into community. Someone was willing to call me up and invite me to belong. They do this with Rahab. They're willing to invite her into community. And that's not the end of Rahab's story. We read of her again 1,400 years later. Matthew chapter 1. This is what it says. This is why this is a Christmas message. You ready? Abraham was the father of Isaac. Sorry, let's begin at the top. This is the genealogy of Jesus. Abraham was the father of Isaac, Isaac the father of Jacob, Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, Judah the father of Perez and Zerah, whose mother was Tamar. 5 generations later, Salmon the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Boaz the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of King David. David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife. Solomon the father of Rehoboam. Let's jump 11 generations later. Josiah the father of Jessoniah and his brothers at the time of the exile to Babylon. 10 generations later, Mathan the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, and Mary was the mother of Jesus, who is called the Messiah. From Rahab to Jesus. And what if the Israelites weren't willing to walk into her house? What if the Israelites weren't willing to keep their word? What if the Israelites weren't willing to invite her into community? Friends, what's at stake? Everything. Everything's at stake. What's at stake? Love. What's at stake? Community, belonging. What's at stake? Purpose and eternity. What's at stake? The gospel of Jesus Christ. Because of the invite of the Israelite people to this random woman, and because God is good and works everything for good, a prostitute named Rahab leads to the King of Kings, Jesus. How cool is that? How scandalous is that? That's awesome. And so I want to close by talking to 2 groups of people. First, it's the person who may feel like they identify most with the Israelites, the Israelite people. For you, there might be a need to invite. And I want you to think hypothetically with me for a moment. What if, let's ask this question, let's have fun. What if no one else is coming? What if God's plan of reaching that person is through you? What if? Don't ask what's at stake for me. What if no one else is coming? You're their coworker right now. You're their neighbor right now. You're their sibling, their friend right now. They're your barista. They're your barber. So what's at stake? Love, belonging, purpose. Remember, it's a simple come and see. You are a bridge builder. You are not the person on the other end of the bridge. It's Jesus. We say come and see. We let Jesus do the rest. But it's our invite that has the power to change lives because Jesus changes everything. There's a famous story of a pastor named Tony Campolo who found himself at a rundown diner at 3 a.m. I want to read you what he writes. It's a little long, but hang in there. He writes this. He says, as I sat there munching on my donut and sipping my coffee at 3:30 in the morning, the door of the diner suddenly swung open. And to my discomfort, in marched 8 or 9 provocative and boisterous prostitutes. It was a small place, and they sat on either side of me. Their talk was loud and crude. I felt completely out of place and was just about to make my getaway when I overheard the woman beside me say, tomorrow's my birthday. I'm going to be 39. Her friend responded in a nasty tone, so what do you want from me, a birthday party? What do you want? You want me to get you a cake and sing happy birthday? Come on, said the woman sitting next to me. Why do you have to be so mean? I was just telling you, that's all. Why do you have to put me down? I was just telling you, it's my birthday. I don't want anything from you. I mean, why should you give me a birthday party? I've never had a birthday party my whole life. Why should I have one now? Tony continues, he says, when I heard that, I made a decision. I sat and I waited until the women had left, and I called over the fat guy behind the counter and I asked him, do they come in here every night? Yeah, he answered. The one right next to me, does she come in here every night? Yeah. That's Agnes. She comes in here every night. Why? What do you want to know? The story continues with Tony teaming up with the owner of the diner, Harry is his name, and his wife. And they throw a birthday party for Agnes. They plan this birthday party for Agnes, the 39-year-old prostitute. The next day, it says this, at 3:30 on the dot, the door of the diner swung open, and in came Agnes and her friend. I had everybody ready, and when they all came in, we screamed, "Happy birthday!" Never have I seen a person so flabbergasted, so stunned, so shaken. Her mouth fell open, her legs seemed to buckle a bit. Her friend grabbed her arm to steady her. As she was led to sit on one of the stools, we all sang happy birthday to her. As we came to the end of our singing, happy birthday, dear Agnes, happy birthday to you, her eyes moistened. Then when the birthday cake with all the candles on it was carried out, she lost it and openly cried. Towards the end of the night, to everyone's surprise, Tony leads the rest of the people in the diner in a prayer. And it shocks everyone. Harry, the owner of the diner, who's just spent the last 24 hours planning a party with him, is shocked as he looks at Tony and asks him this, "Hey, you never told me you're a preacher. What kind of church do you belong to?" And Tony says this, in one of those moments when just the right words came, I answered, "I belong to a church that throws birthday parties for prostitutes at 3:30 in the morning." That could be us. Sorry, that should be us. People are willing to go wherever. People are willing to ask the question, what's at stake? And who is it that I could invite into this beautiful thing called Jesus? This beautiful person named Jesus. Lastly, I want to talk to the Rahabs in the room. You may not be a woman from Jericho, but if you look at your life, you have a past, you have a present, you have a story that feels like a lot. It feels not so glamorous. I hope you see in Rahab's story that there is a place for you. We've hopped all around the Bible today from Joshua to Matthew. I want to jump to the last place that Rahab is mentioned in Scripture. It's Hebrews chapter 11, verse 31. It says this, "By faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient." That's cool, right? That's the story. However, this whole chapter, Hebrews 11, is referred to as the Hall of Faith. The Hall of Faith. Everyone in here who's listed, we see names like Abraham, Moses, David, all of these great heroes in the faith. And right here, almost as if it wasn't meant to be there, but it was, in verse 31, is Rahab. Amongst all of these greats, amongst all of these heroes in the faith, we see Rahab. And I want to encourage anybody today who feels like they've messed up too many times, they feel too broken or too far gone or too hurt or too lost or too dirty, you're never too broken or too messed up for Jesus. Your past does not define your future. See, the message of the Bible, the message of Jesus, the message of Christmas is that you're in. You're invited. There's a seat at the table for you. And today could be the day that you step forward and say yes to Jesus with all of your brokenness. That's what baptism is about. To step forward in faith as a son or a daughter, to be washed new by the waters. You may ask, what's at stake? Eternity, life, purpose, freedom. That's what a life with Jesus brings. So maybe today's the day that you step forward and say yes to Jesus. Friends, I don't want you to miss out on something because you underestimated its power. I don't want you to miss out on the life that Jesus has for you, a life that, quite frankly, would blow your mind. A life full of freedom and joy and purpose and community and love. And so if that's you, if you're ready to make that decision today, I want to invite you. to stand. I actually want to invite everybody to just stand with us as we close out our time together. What we're going to do is read what we call a statement of faith. And I'd love to invite all of you who would say that you're a follower of Jesus to read this with me. And maybe today, this is the first time you're going to declare these words. Maybe you're going to say these things with me. I'm going to read it, and you can repeat after me. I'll read it, you repeat after me. I believe that Jesus died for my sin and raised from the dead. And I accept him as my Savior. And I will follow him as my Lord. If you just said yes to this, if you repeated those lines with me, and you haven't made that decision to come forward in faith and be baptized, then you're ready. You're ready to go public with your faith, to show publicly what God is doing internally.